Welcome to Oops, All Monsters, a deadly, unserious show about creatures, cryptids, and curiosities curated by two weirdos from wild and wonderful West Virginia. That weirdo with me, when I can drag him out of the hull of that old Russian destroyer, is Gavin.
And this professional painter of portraits with me is Hess.
And we are here to, as we always are, delight and edify with tales of mysterious monsters from myth, film, literature, television, and gaming, both inside of the box and inside of the console. And each week, we bring a monster into the shop, unknown to the other presenter. I don't know what Gavin's going to present, and vice versa. And then we discuss what we brought into the shop for the edification of each other and you, the listener. So before we get into the monsters, we like to start out with a segment that we call Villainous Vuvuzela. Villainous vocabulary.
Let's do jactitation.
Okay, how are you spelling jactitation? Jack?
Jactitation.
Okay. Was that a software company that made carts for Atari in the 70s? No?
Close. No, it's the uncontrollable twitching of a body part.
Yeah.
Or claiming to be married to someone who doesn't know that you're making this claim. Or a generalized way to say that you're going to harm something. Or to throw something and toss it carelessly, like it metaphorically, to just throw it around. Like the jactitation of this slander.
I'm seeing a graph here of when this was popularly used. It looks like the early 1800s. People were really saying jactitation.
Yeah. I'm gonna press
it. I don't know how this will come across on the feed, but I'm gonna press the "say it for me" button and see what happens. No?
Jactitation of marriage.
Oh, there you go.
Jactitation of marriage.
Jactitation of marriage. Here's the word by itself.
Jactitation.
That's a different lady.
Jactitation.
Yeah. Jactitation.
Jactitation.
I can see why this word fell out of use, because it's fucking impossible to say.
Jactitation.
The restless tossing of the body in illness. False declaration that one is married to a specific person. Wow.
Because, those are related.
I'm sure we could get into the lexicography of how they are some way the same word, but that's not going to happen right now. So we are your word of the week calendar. Peel off today's page and move on to the next one, because I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see if we can see if we can enter that into the show at some point, if I can get that into my dialogues. Well, that was villainous vocabulary. Very good. Awesome. Nailed it.
She gaslighted me with that jactitation.
I mentioned that I'm showing. I mentioned before we got on mic that I was showing WandaVision to my students, and
yeah.
It's crazy, like, the 2/3 of the way through the show, or halfway through the show, really what Wanda is doing to Vision is... Oh, wait, spoiler alerts for WandaVision. If you have not seen it, get on it. It's good, even though Disney owns it. That... She's really gaslighting him when he starts asking real solid questions. That's some serious gaslighting shit. And she's just like, oh, don't worry about it. That's not a big deal. I'm like, oh, wait, you've reconstructed me and this whole situation. That's some rough shit. Like, what?
Abducted an entire town.
Yeah. Everybody should really get the point that is the point, that Wanda is really the villain of the show.
Yeah. I hope so.
But it is... Because it is the case. It is fucked up. Like rewatching the first episode where they have the the dinner with the boss and the wife, and you watch that when she's saying stop it, and like when you can read what's actually going on, that she's trying to get like her to stop using her fucking powers to like prevent her husband from being killed and them all from being enslaved is really intense and rough. Like, it's from the townspeople's perspective, it is a rough show. Like, it's very very dark. But anyway, totally good for Disney. Just mind slavery, only mind slavery, no big deal. So, before we totally scare you off, let's get to the monsters we have this week. It's less of a story. Instead, I'm going to try to pitch you a movie, Gavin.
Right.
So it's the late '80s. Everybody loves movies. The popcorn, the sticky seats, the good and plenties. People are just
all that crap, that smell,
gonzo for them. Yeah, I actually really do miss that smell, particularly the smell of like the Warner Theater in the '80s.
Yeah,
the smell always stayed the same, regardless of who owned the company.
It's like delicious must.
Yes, it's a salty, candy-ish. Yeah,
salty concrete.
Yeah. Salty candy coated concrete, and dried out butter flavored topping. But so it's the late '80s. Everybody's just wild about Hollywood, and there's a fuck ton of movies coming out about space, and people are kind of like, what if we could do space, but it wasn't space? So they come up with a series of different movies that are kind of like space, but not. And we're like, okay, we're going to combine a bunch of elements. What if we could make the best space-like movie that's not about space? It's going to have scary-ass monster in it. What are some great ingredients that we could add into it? Okay, if we're going to have a big scary monster, we're going to have top-shelf special effects for this monster. Get the best of the best. Stan Winston. Okay, we're gonna get Stan Winston. Stan Winston. He's up there with Rob Bottin. You could maybe even rank Stan Winston as more important than Rob Bottin, the creator of the Thing effects. And Stan Winston, for anybody that somehow just listens to this show but does not know, is the Terminator, Aliens, Predator, Monster Squad,
RoboCop.
Predator 2, RoboCop, Terminator 2, Lake Placid, if you get into the more like the current era.
Yeah, Lake Placid.
AI, the artificial intelligence movie, for people that like that. Constantine, Iron Man, like absolutely, he is the absolute paragon of Hollywood creature effects and super special effects. So bam, lock that down. This creature is going to look fucking awesome. Okay, what are some other elements that we need? We're going to have we're going to need we're going to need a really great cast. All right, we're going to have a really great cast. What are we going to get? We're going to let's get a Ghostbuster in there. Awesome. We've got a Ghostbuster. Boom. Which one? Don't worry about it. All right, we need some other stars. We need a really, really, really hot chick with a foreign accent. Boom. Okay, we got a really hot chick with a foreign accent. We're gonna get Amanda Pays. She's Mulder's ex-girlfriend later in X-Files. She's hot as hell. She's a really good actress. She's got a really pointy nose. We're going to make sure she gets naked like 3 or 4 times down to her underwear, and also it's sometimes wet. All right, awesome, perfect. Nailing this movie so far. Got it. Okay, we're not just going to have a Ghostbuster and a hot chick. We're going to have a whole pantheon of awesome character actors. Who do we need? Let's get fucking RoboCop in there. That sounds like a good idea. We're gonna get.
All right, then I got it.
Yeah, what is it?
It's Leviathan.
It is Leviathan, the 1989 popcorn munching under the sea horror movie, deep sea horror movie. 1989 release.
Leviathan.
Currently with a Russian fleet in the Baltic Sea.
Currently it's rusted junk and we're looking at it.
Directed by a guy named George, and I don't want to chop up his name, George Cosmatos, okay, who is deceased now, died in 2005. But George Cosmatos has a relatively brief brief filmography here. A couple of noted ones being Rambo: First Blood Part 2, and then subsequently Cobra. But it's reported that he actually didn't really direct Cobra. He was just on there to let Sly direct Cobra secretly, and would just hanging out and collecting a paycheck. He was kind of doing a solid for Sly after Rambo 2. And then comes Leviathan, 1989, and then after that, favorite of the show, Tombstone, 1993, also directs Tombstone. Interestingly, he does also direct an episode of Joe Bob's Drive-In Theater. Why do you say kind of?
Tombstone, with the cowboy?
Yeah,
movie?
the Tombstone, yes.
Half of that was directed by Kurt Russell himself.
Aha. So maybe Kurt Russell, maybe George Cosmatos is maybe the secret genius of film directing, who just attaches his name to movies and then lets the star direct a movie and just sits there and eats craft services. I don't know. Or he just drinks gin in his trailer.
In vino veritas.
From what I know about it is that which is a lot, because that Tombstone is I don't know, one of my top 5 know about all of it movies.
Yes.
That and Aliens.
Yeah.
And Tombstone, I guess the director was having a lot of trouble. People weren't really following him. People weren't really respecting him. Kurt Russell stepped in and as the nice guy that he is, pretty much started directing it himself.
Yeah.
But still saying you need to listen to the director.
Yeah. And and here's the thing is, and there's a natural through line that actually brings up some of the subjects I was going to bring up, is that one of the main detractors that this film Leviathan has in terms of what people harsh on about it is that it's a ripoff of primarily The Thing, and a couple of other movies that are extremely similar in the sense that the monster is kind of a weird mutating mashup monster that absorbs people, and even some of the creature effects are very specifically Thing-like. But we'll get into that. We'll get into that later.
Yeah.
But the fact, and I mean, Kurt Russell, if you had to have somebody standing around already getting paid to take over, Kurt Russell's pretty good because he's been starring in movies since he was 12 fucking years old. He's
since he was old enough.
Yeah, and
since he was old enough to sell that toy gun.
And then many of them being really sitting in the lap of John Carpenter, who really knows how to fucking direct a movie, and just by osmosis, an intelligent person like Kurt Russell would get enough of that to competently decide okay, let's do an over-the-shoulder shot and we'll move it with a crane right now, and that kind of shit. It just get the ball rolling. But so I'm not gonna say that this movie that its weaknesses are purely from the direction by George Cosmatos. I'm gonna say that certain things about it just don't come together, and he seems to be the person to blame. For the most part, because the other ingredients involved are just it is almost impossible to imagine that this recipe failed. Peter Weller, starring as your main character, who is of course RoboCop. He's goddamn RoboCop. He's goddamn Buckaroo Banzai. He's a very compelling,
Buckaroo Banzai,
charismatic leading guy. He's a serious actor, whether you are all into the cops Robo or not. He's a good leading man. He looks good. He sounds good. He delivers lines extremely well. He has good chemistry with people on camera. And for your director of photography, the man that's going to shoot all this crazy looking stuff is a guy by the name of Alex Thomas, the director of photography, Thompson. I'm sorry, Alex Thompson, and he's the director of photography behind such clunkers as Legend and Excalibur. Absolutely incredible, award-winning cinematographer. So, I mean, that should not be a problem. Your creature effects, like we said, are done by Stan Winston and his whole. Even at this point, Stan Winston has a massive retinue of people that do work for him. You're even going to have somebody who's incredibly amazing inside of the monster suit when the monster comes to life, which is this comes to life on screen. This guy named Tom Woodruff Jr., who has been inside of suits and inside of creature props for movies including the Terminator, Aliens, Monster Squad, Alien Nation, Leviathan, Tremors, Alien 3, Death Becomes Her, Demolition Man, Wolf, Mortal Kombat as Goro, Tremors 2, Michael, the one with old what's his name from Greece, Starship Troopers, The X-Files. It keeps going on. Like, he is a phenomenal top shelf effects puppeteer, inside the suit analog actor. So that shouldn't get screwed up. The camera should be really amazing with Alex Thompson. The effects should be really amazing. Your cast is fantastic because you've got Ernie Hudson, who is really good. I don't know. I'm a big fan of Ernie Hudson because of Albrecht from The Crow and of course Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
Then
I did know that it was Leviathan whenever you said, which Ghostbuster? Don't worry about it.
Yeah, of course.
Well, that means Ernie Hudson.
Yeah, and Richard Crenna, who is Troutman from Rambo. He's playing the doctor character.
Yeah.
Amanda Pays, who I mentioned, is gorgeous and is actually really good on screen. Plays Elizabeth Willie Williams. Daniel fucking Stern plays this walking HR violation character, the name of Six Pack, who's just like a one-trick pony of just being offensive and drunk. But I like seeing Daniel Stern play douchebag. He's obviously based off of the character Palmer from The Thing, portrayed by David Clennon, the "you gotta be fucking kidding" guy. It's so clear that they wanted to have a Palmer in this. It's like, let's have a white douchebag guy who drinks. It's like, this guy won't smoke weed. He'll crush beers. That is one of the many ways that they reiterate The Thing and, to a lesser extent, Alien. Because when you go into this undersea habitat where they're doing mining, just like an Alien, and working for a douchebag super future corporation, just like Alien, the production design of how things look, everybody's wearing these normal kind of workaday blue collar costumes. It is Alien every which way from Sunday, and then they find in the business of looking around under the ocean for to rescue Six Pack when he falls off of a cliff. Turns out that they find this scuttled Russian ship called the Leviathan. And they go in there, they pull some junk out to get the story about it. They find some very conveniently located booty, and a videotape, also exactly like from The Thing, and some other spooky stuff, including a bottle of vodka. Some of the characters consume the bottle of vodka. Turns out the bottle of vodka is, for some reason, tainted with genetic mutation
Leviathan
thing that they just extrapolate without this is one of my major problems with the screenplay. And again, the screenplay is written by a guy named David Peoples, who's written such clunkers as Blade Runner and Unforgiven. Yeah. Like your ability to the fact that you were given like this recipe of things of like how to like shoot this 3-pointer, and you like totally lay up a brick with all of these like tools at your discretion. You're like, well, it's written by the guy who wrote Blade Runner and Unforgiven and 12 Monkeys, and it's shot by the guy who shot Legend.
Was.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I realize that these are layers on top of layers.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It still counts for a lot. It
seems like you really have to go out of your way to fuck this up as bad as you do. Not that the movie is terrible. It's just that it never synthesizes. It gets to like literally halfway through the movie. I was watching it. I was waiting. Where the fuck is this monster going to show up? Because I've seen the movie a number of times, but it was a long time ago. And it's literally past the halfway point before really even anything vaguely dangerous occurs. There is so much front-loaded mining drama mishigas, which I'm like... Yeah, I'm in favor of establishing the world that the characters are living in Act 1, but it's more than half the movie of just miscellaneous like mining drama until you get to anything happening. So it all gets jammed in to the last 45 minutes of the movie, and it's badly paced. There's holes in how the people behave. Nobody reacts in an appropriate manner. Like a lot, like some of these movies, like in The Thing, there's a really good, the greatest thing about The Thing, I didn't do that on purpose, but the greatest thing about The Thing, in addition to in a really long list, is that everybody reacts to the shit that is going on exactly how a real human being would react to that real shit, to that very unreal shit happening. Like, everybody's emotional response is the correct amount of what the fuck for something that is absolutely mind-blowing. Like, people's reactions and how they freak out and how they retreat into themselves or blow up or have a breakdown or run off and get a shotgun or, prepare like a vial of acid to throw in somebody's face if necessary. Everybody acts in a convincing way to the danger. And in this movie, everybody's it just doesn't feel real and locked down. And then additionally, the monster always looks like crap in this movie. And I honestly had forgotten what the fuck the monster was. I was remembering something closer to being in the Deep Star 6 /
there it is.
The Deep Star. I was thinking of the Deep Star 6 / Abyss kind of realm of kind of a vague, like, impressive CGI meets analog kind of subterranean allegory. But instead, this is a series of kind of non-specific, fleshy tentacle, like squished, giant worm with teeth bullshit. And then what you get is like the ultimate monster is a weird, fleshy, like homunculus amalgamation fish monster man.
No, it looks like that it had a form, and then they decided that it shouldn't have a form, that it should be like a collection of amorphous horrors, that kind of look.
Yeah.
But they tried to throw that on top of something that was already formed.
Yeah, there's like...
looks bad if you're going to do that.
There's a logic to it, and I think that they got the green light from The Thing to just go like, okay, well, you can just... look how crazy The Thing and The Thing is, and every time it's different.
Yeah.
So we've also got a genetic mutating monster, so you can just throw whatever the fuck you want in there and make yourself a kitchen sink like fish monster, and it'll rock. And then still with the ingredients that they have with the Stan Winston studio and with his puppeteer people, and with an incredible cinematographer, the combination still doesn't really work. And it's very unfortunate. And I don't know how many giant fish monsters we're going to cover in the first season of our show, but we're already at 2, and we don't even have 10.
A lot of it's going to be nautical.
We don't even have 10. I didn't do that on purpose because I honestly had forgotten that this ended up being
I didn't either.
A mutant fish monster. I was
right.
I was legitimately expecting a smooshy water machine thing that. I'd seen this movie a number of times because I very specifically remembered the extreme close-up that they do of the flask of vodka that he's pouring to the hot blonde girl actor. And she's quite good. She plays kind of like a Bambi stereotype character, but she's good on screen. Lisa Eilbacher, Bridget Bowman, and she's given virtually nothing for the character, and she's kind of both of the female characters, unfortunately, are very eye candy-y, even though the Amanda Pays character is more like a whole person, but the Bridget Bowman character is kind of
also. We should add that the third woman in this movie is Meg Foster.
Yes, don't worry. I was not going to miss.
All right, we'll get to Meg Foster.
Meg Foster. That's good to bring that up. Meg Foster plays the evil company douchebag lady that is behind the industrial operation that's running the mining agency. She's kind of doing all the Burke work in this movie of being the face of the company. It lacks a lot of drama because they're just calling into her on the future telecom thing. But Meg Foster is she's complicated but also amazing, and is still working now. She's quite a bit older now. But those of you that don't know who we mean, if you're our age, you would know her as the woman with the incredibly pale husky style blue eyes who plays Evelyn in the much maligned Masters of the Universe movie. And as much as I really hate that movie, she did a kick-ass job with that character. That's
Evelyn. She's
really good in nearly everything that she's in, and I'm curious if you asked her about her. Yes, absolutely. And I know that she gets cast because of how naturally wild her eye color is in combination with her natural ability. I'm curious whether she sees that as a shortcut, that it's helped her over the years, is how intense her eyes look, or whether she's kind of annoyed with it. She was also famous for being. She was one of the main characters in Cagney and Lacey, which I didn't even know. She's Cagney in Cagney and Lacey. It was just 70s enough that I never really watched it, and it didn't play in reruns on my TV stations. So I don't have a Cagney and Lacey background to pull from, but she was pretty legit on TV for a long time. And delivers a very down the middle Meg Foster style, smoking and crossing her legs and inevitably being evil portrayal here in this movie. So she's great. Hector Elizondo plays GP Cobb, who's kind of the shop foreman kind of character. He's good. I didn't really like Michael Carmine, who plays the Tony DeJesus character. I think he's playing it at a 13 out of 10, and it's just a little bit. It's like he's on stage, and that's not great. Ernie Hudson is really good. Ernie Hudson is just a solid actor, and he's one of the videos that I watched discussing the movie. I would say accurately describes Ernie Hudson as kind of being the POV character for the audience, where he's like, "This is some fucking bullshit," and the audience is like, "Yeah, this is some fucking bullshit." I get out of there, Ernie Hudson.
Whatever it is, it appears to be a genetic aberration.
No shit.
So I don't know. A lot of the things don't work with the movie. I think they couldn't make a decision about what the monster was, and they got the wrong note from the thing, which is like a monster could just be a whole bunch of random bullshit, and so our monster's going to be a whole bunch of random like underwater bullshit, and it's hard to like be that judgmental about a Stan Winston creation because you go on the Stan Winston website for his like creature effects school and special effects school, and you look at the tools that they created to design that monster and how much work it meant into it, and theoretically it should make sense. Like they pull in all of this actual medical and undersea visual stuff to create this weird mutant fishman thing. But ultimately, I think it was just too big and ungainly for it to move in a way that made it seem like something that was real in space. I think that they shot it in a too generous of a way for the camera. I think they just covered it too thoroughly. They showed it too much for how limited the puppet was. I think that half the time they're just having like a bloody tentacle fight you. Early on, there's just this weird suckerfish thing that looks like a giant like burned black sperm with nasty teeth that like burrows into one character's chest like an anti-alien chest burster kind of move. Like you couldn't decide. Like it wasn't obvious to the audience what monster we were being introduced to, and that was not an advantage. Like in The Thing, the mystery really like pulls you in a direction of the complete unknowableness of the monster, and in this it swings for that. It swings at that ball and absolutely whiffs it. Like it just is a total strikeout where you're like, well, look at that dumb thing. All right, now it's this kind of dumb thing. Wait a second. I thought there was gonna be big worms, and then suddenly you've got a giant monstrous like mushy fish man that's got a whole bunch of like the character's faces trapped in its torso. And at no point does it to meet the point of terror. But if you lay it out point by point, it seems to be exactly the same thing as an Alien or The Thing, where you're like, I don't know how this didn't work. We hit all the same points, but they just don't gel into a new ingredient, into a new recipe, and it's just not there. And it's not the fault of the actors, because the actors they're acting the hell out of this script, and the result is you got something that made like 15 million versus its 20 million cost, but it was up against really big heavy hitting movies also about underwater monsters that came out that year. So it really and Fletch Lives came out the same day, and it took number 2 against Fletch Lives. So do with that piece of information whatever you want. But so I wanted to like the monster. It has some scary elements. Probably the best part is when the Daniel Stern monster is kind of like under the blanket and transforming and mutating into a different thing. At that point, it really has potential to be scary, and ultimately the things it turns into they're just not frightening. The movie doesn't follow like a logic that really connects like block to block, and you keep having to ask questions as the audience to make the movie make sense. So I want to really like it, and it's also not bad. It's like not really bad enough to sit there and like chop it up and MST3K it. So it's in a very awkward spot. Yeah. So it's not Stan Winston's best work. Whether it's his fault or not, it's hard to say. I think the monster needed to be smaller and have more of a specific angle that it was pursuing, and it probably needed to get shot differently.
Smaller.
Well, and here's why I say smaller is when you watch it in real time on screen. If it had been underwater, this might have been fine. But the way that the puppet moves with like Woodruff inside of it, it just moves like a puppet. It's so heavy that he's very clearly forcing his movements. It's obviously not a thing that is self-animate. Like, it never seems to act in a self-possessed way.
Yeah.
It's clearly being dragged along by a crew of people, or a guy who can barely hold it up for a few seconds at a time. And so it doesn't have even the animation of, like, Miss Piggy or Kermit the Frog, you know, because you can the puppet to perform a ratio in a Muppet, even though a Muppet is very simple in certain ways, it is obviously possessed by something that can animate it in real time in a convincing fashion. Where Woodruff was obviously struggling against this carapace that he's been the alien in a bunch of alien movies. He's good at this. So it's hard to imagine that it's his fault. I'm sure it's not. It was just, on some level, a bad combination between the way it looked, how hard it was to interact with as a performer, and the way that they shot it, against the elements of the script that didn't come together. So some of those pieces just didn't bake in, and the recipe that comes out doesn't taste right.
The monster has, like, humanish puppy eyes with a fish mouth, which is, like, kind of comical. It's not scary. It's really funny to look at.
Yeah.
Like, I don't see this and think, oh no, it's gonna get me. I see this and think, this is a great Saturday morning villain.
Yes.
It just needs Frank Welker to voice it.
Yeah.
It's like, you'll never get my gems.
Yes. Yeah, it's, well, you know, going toward fish is walking a very skinny tightrope, I think. Because, like, I'm the first one that will say, you know, and you know this, that, like, fish be scary. Like, stuff in the water is scary. I'm specifically afraid of sea monsters.
Absolutely.
Like, things with claws that are inside of suckers that are attached to tentacles, and that tentacle is like 40 feet long, and that thing also comes out of the bottom of the fucking ocean, and also it kills whales. That's fucking scary. I remember I was at a party. I was at, like, a party at our mutual friend, like, Charlie's get-together out when we were both living in California, and, like, all of his friends are, like, biology scientists and grad students, particularly at the time when he was in school for it at that time, and somehow giant squid came up in the conversation, separate from me. I did not introduce it. And I said something about, a claw inside of a sucker on a tentacle, and one of these biology majors was like, "Oh, that's not real." And I was like, "Oh," and they're like, "Yeah, real squid don't have claws inside of their suckers." And I was like, "I bet you $1,000 that they factually do."
Yeah.
And it was very funny to me because I then made the point. I was like, "You should trust the person that has a terrifying, crippling fear of this thing, as opposed to the biology grad student," which is really ironic because I'm like you're making a really bold claim about a thing that you ought to be an expert in, but you are not.
No shit.
Yeah. But things at the bottom of the ocean are genuinely fucking terrifying, and they're basing this monster off of, like, cuttlefish and other shit that is, like, genuinely visually very terrifying. You know, the stuff that lives in the completely sunless black of the deep sea, and they use their bioluminescence to trap their prey with a little bobber in front and the giant transparent teeth. I mean, those things are freaking nightmares. And so the ingredients that they're using as reference for the monster logically should add up into a thing that really grabs you by the gonads, but somehow it doesn't get there because walking the fishy tightrope is hard. And they fell off onto the, like, oh, it's a goofy fish man thing, and all of a sudden you've just got, what's replacing the Famir in Hero Quest.
It was an experiment that tampered with nature's most basic laws.
It's just like, it's just kind of a fishy dude, and it doesn't get there.
reviewing the last scene, it just kind of kills Ernie Hudson.
Ernie Hudson supposedly had real words arguing with George. I'm going to call him George Monsanto. George, he's dead. I should be nice. George, the director George Cosmatos. Apparently, he battled with him that he thought it was absolutely nonsense. There is a logical point to killing somebody right before the rescue. To get yourself a last scare in there, but the way it plays out the way it plays out in the movie is like
scary.
It's not scary at all. It's bright daylight, and it's not that you can't have a daylight kill that is frightening. Lots of movies are frightening.
Bright daylight, the monster's barely moving the way it should.
Yeah,
Ernie Hudson has already clearly escaped.
You've got a very clean visual on a monster puppet that just is not selling itself in bright daylight, and they're obviously in 5 feet of water in a tank on a lot, and the drama isn't there. And they just tick off. They have like 2 minutes left in the damn movie, and they just tick off the bad killing the black guy trope. Like they were so close, and they fucking had to fuck it up at the last minute. They had to kill Ernie Hudson in the last 5 minutes.
Peter Weller's character doesn't even bother trying to. He's right next to him. Peter Weller's character is right next to him.
Yeah,
and he doesn't bother to just like grab him.
Yes, it was infuriating. I think the thing I maybe shouted the most at, or I was like, come on!" Because I mean, it was long enough where I had no idea whether he lived or not. So the tension of him living was there. Yeah. I was like, "Oh, Ernie Hudson's going to live. He's right. The helicopter's right there." And then, but if it had been a successful scene, if it had been a successful use of the puppet. Like, for instance, if that puppet had been in a tank that was deep enough that they could have put the puppet under the actors, and it became and you did an overhead shot where the puppet became visible through the water coming up from underneath. If they had used the water to disguise the quality of the puppet in such a way, you just put something in water and all of a sudden, it's like going from HD to SD. It gives it so much more sense of feeling and weight and realness, and also the obfuscation of the light quality and the shadows and the movement of the water. You really could have taken that puppet if you just did that shot differently. If you went over the top with a crane, had a separate tank that was just big enough that you could get the puppet underneath them, and then you didn't know that the monster was going to come up at all. And you do all of them languishing there, waiting for they're waiting a few minutes. You could have the sharks, and there's unnecessary sharks in the scene, but you eliminate the sharks, and then you just have them like laughing away. Oh, we're going to be saved, and then you reveal the puppet from underneath. And you cut away as soon as it starts to like look too fakey, and then you can cut to to whoever you want to kill being killed. At least
jerked down.
Yeah, exactly. At least if you're gonna check off the douchey trope of killing the black guy in the last 2 minutes, like at least do it with an incredibly terrifying kill. And they had an opportunity to reveal the monster showing up in the last moments, and it was a really lazy version of directing. Just stand the puppet there and have it like reach out and grab the dude in just like the most anticlimactic way possible.
Flops his arm on top of Ernie Hudson's head,
it's miserable.
That's supposed to be deadly.
And that's what I mean by the puppet's too heavy. The size makes it too cumbersome for the actor inside of it, Woodruff, to manipulate it in a way that gives it a sense of animation and reality. So, I think if that puppet were used in a more judicious and creative way, if it was always coming through the water, if it was obscured by the water, if it was dripping and coming out of shadow, if it was being shot in a more dynamic fashion, then you could probably even take that puppet. Okay, I'm officially revising my stance. This movie is George Cosmatos' fault for failure, and Winston has absolutely... he did a fine job. Because if you go on to Stan... I'm sorry, both of these people are dead, but somebody's got to lose. And George Cosmatos, the director of Cobra, unfortunately, is probably shoveling the lion's share of manure in this situation. And
he's also known for almost screwing up Tombstone.
Yes, but you could just take a few of these big suit monster scenes, get them in the water. They're already shooting in the water, not for the whole... I mean, this movie is actually an incredible use of dry for wet shooting, meaning a lot of the stuff where they're running around at the bottom of the ocean, they're shooting it dry with atmospheric effects and fake snow and things to make it look like they're in the water when they're not. And frankly, I didn't even notice that at all. So that shortcut actually totally worked for me. I didn't even clock it, and I'm usually very good at seeing that stuff. And
well, along the way, this movie did almost everything perfectly, and there are some 6 or 7 reasons why it didn't work, but they're gigantic reasons.
Yes,
which is namely the monster sucks really bad.
Yeah, and I thought I was going to be democratic about that there's a share of it that comes from Stan Winston. There's a share of it that comes from George Cosmatos. There's a share of it that comes from the script being slow and clunky. But I honestly, the script being slower, that the movie playing out too slowly and too clunky, that's the director's problem. Because there's
also a lot of nonsensical, almost unbelievable character actions.
Correct. The choices that the characters make don't make any fucking sense at various points throughout the crisis. And you could say that was David Peoples' issue with the script, but I'll say he gets a little bit of it. George Cosmatos gets a lot of it for not having a use of Stan Winston's effects that ultimately gets them across the goal line in terms of believability. And I don't think it's Stan Winston's fault. He made a thing that could be scary if used judiciously and directed in a dynamic way, and they just didn't use those ingredients properly.
Yeah. Well, also, the size of the monster never hits the proportion that you would consider a Leviathan to be.
No,
it's more like a troll.
Yeah. It's kind of like swapping out the Famir for the big fish guy that's going to be on Hero Quest. It's just another big... Yeah. It's just a big trolly thing. The way that it's used and its physicality, because it's so big and awkward, it makes it just ogreish. You know what I mean? It's just this is just a weird, nasty ogre. Where the things that should be frightening about it are its alien nature and that it is a mystery. It should be the things that make the thing of the thing scary, is that it's unpredictable. It can run around and do mysterious business. It could be inside of you at any point. That element in this movie, it is a little bit fearful, but they don't play the beats of it in an intelligent way. When you're going to play that, it could be in any of us, virus problem, song, you have to hit those notes in a very careful, intelligent, organized way. And they're just kind of slapping the keys. So it does. That doesn't. It kind of works, but then they completely abandon that. Yeah, totally. They're skipping a lot of the notes that are necessary for that fear and anxiety to actually play out, because you pretty much get telegraphed where it's going and when in Leviathan, and they're not playing the doubt game in an intelligent fashion like they're doing in The Thing.
Yeah,
so
all the character writing and all of the really awkwardness of it all does come to a nice head at the end whenever Peter Weller just punches Meg Foster.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, that's... Like, coming from all of this nonsense, that is, like, the best nonsense ending.
Yeah.
You can do. Like, well, it all makes sense now. They're all just jackasses.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. I really wonder if that's how it was actually written in the script, because because that is like, it is like, well, we're out of money, just punch her in the face. Is there another movie with that exact ending, or am I?
Yes, Die Hard.
Thank you. Oh God, I'm gonna have to edit that out. Like, I don't remember what goes on in Die Hard. I mean, that's a really unfortunate. Clearly, another steal from this movie. It's like I mean, it's almost like this movie is a kind of like. It's an amalgam. It's like a sushi restaurant where all of these ingredients are going by on a conveyor belt, and they just decided, I'll have a California roll, I'll have a Philadelphia roll, I'll have some sashimi, and they're just throwing it onto their plate and saying, okay, this is going to be a good combination. This will work. All of these individual parts that will add up to a movie in this shape, it's got to win. You know, Gonzo, Boffo Lenny, Gonzo Lenny, Gangbusters.
You gonna make me finish this puzzle by myself or what?
Well, yeah, it's not. I don't think it's a very good movie.
No, it's not. It's a frustratingly bad movie for what it is. And that was my experience of it. I was like, man, this is shot really well.
I know, you are right. They started with so many right ingredients.
It's acted really well. The cast rules. A lot of the stuff looks awesome, like the suits and the dry for wet effects, and the sets look good. Like, most of that stuff is like, yeah, okay, this is a legit movie. And then it starts hitting these crucial points, and it's just whiffing and whiffing and whiffing. It's just not. Yeah. It's gonna ultimately a thumbs down. I gotta give it a 0 out of Leviathan. And ultimately, I don't think it's Stan Winston's fault. I think he had an interesting idea and went in a direction.
I really hope he didn't design the monster, because I hate it.
He sure did. He and his team designed it. You know, they brought him like thousands and thousands of images from medical textbooks and biology textbooks and you know, things about undersea creatures. And, you know, he goes into it at length on his school's website, talking about how they created it. And, you know, there's a collaboration that doesn't work.
Which one do you want? Like a fish monster man, or an amorphous, like, I don't know, absorbing horror monster that has all of these people that, like, make up its form? Because whenever you have something like that, it's not going to already have a form, which is this fish monster man. Yes. Because it looks like it's just kind of smeared on the back, like I got that monster on me. Yeah. I'm also a giant fish monster man.
Yeah, it's really like a lazy remix of two separate monsters. It's like, we've got a giant fish monster man, and we've got a thing, like the thing thing, guys. You know, and instead what you have is like a giant fish monster man with creepy faces coming out of it, like the original The Fly. You know what I mean? Yeah. They're just like, help me, we're in the fish monster man. And we're just like, it's very salty in here. We're not enjoying ourselves whatsoever. Could you get us out? And it's got that, like, hokey effect of, like, the ghost of Christmas Future from Scrooged, of like the guys inside of the ribcage going like, wah! They're just like bad Halloween gags, but it is perfect for that monster.
Get calls about that.
Yeah, it's that level of like, okay, of just like, I guess there's a dude in there, like Alizondo's just sticking his face through that fish monster man, and it doesn't get you there. It's like you need to pick a lane of either it's something that is a unknowable miasmic grotesque that can take on any shape, or it's a fish monster man. Like, pick one or the other. And so I'm going to say that Okay, that's everybody's going down the tubes now. Fuck you, Stan Winston. You're trash. All of your work and all of the great movies that are so beloved to me and millions of other people are trash thanks to the Fish Monster Man. No, I'm not going to say that, but I think they needed to pick a lane for what that monster was. They bit off more than they could chew, and it was trying to be two things at the same time, and it didn't work. So, all right, Stan, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
You almost always do a fantastic job, which is frustrating because the details of the monster are rendered in a really compelling way. Like, it sure looks like it's something. Like, it sure looks like a fish monster man, but it's it ends up having kind of like knock knock, who is it? It's land shark kind of feeling
exactly.
To it.
It's like the land shark skin.
Yes. Yeah, knock knock. Who is it? It's 5 character actors trapped inside of a fish monster man.
It shouldn't have been called Leviathan. It should have been called like, I don't know what another biblical fish monster name is, but there definitely is one. I mean,
oops, all biblical fish monsters. It is.
Yeah. What was the thing that Thor fought? Oh, Jormungandr. Jormungandr.
Jormungandr. In Norse mythology, Jormungandr, also known as the Midgard serpent, is a sea serpent, the middle child of the giantess.
You know what? This is really big too.
And Loki.
Yeah, never mind. Jormungandr's really giant too, so like never mind.
Well, that's one of the main things about things that are scary in the ocean is they gotta be big.
Yeah, they gotta be gigantic.
That's the thing about the ocean. The ocean is proportionally so monstrously large that things that are scary in it gotta be large.
Yeah, I would fight the Leviathan monster. I would definitely muster up some courage. Go at it because it's not moving very well.
In my recollection, when I like cranked up this movie on Amazon Prime to watch it, I was imagining this thing, and they almost go in this direction in this movie, but I imagined this thing that got into the like water system of the deep sea base, which it does after they chop off part of it. But then I misremembered it as it turning into this vast tentacle beast that like infected the whole place and was like grabbing people from dark nooks and corners of the movie. And there are little bits of that, but it's never properly done, and they don't commit to that being the thing. And it completely doesn't jive with the Fish Monster Man and ends up being the punchline.
I think that memory, I have that memory too, just in general. I think something bad happened to us that we don't remember. But sometimes I'll remember that specific, like, wasn't there a giant amorphous horror that came after us that infected reality?
Well.
Holy shit!
Now that we've escaped our first menace, dear readers, we invite you into the apothecary, that den of rare and obscure balms, salves, powders, and oils derived from the exotic serpents, clattering critters, and acrid arachnids, where we do our most shadowy machinations. Our friend Jeremy keeps dying in the dark, putrid dungeons, one player character after the next, like moths to the flame, whether it's crushed by a cyclops, didn't get his mage armor up in time, or was incinerated by his own divine light. Jeremy finds a way for his piss wizard to perish in the first round of combat. So here we are to ask you to open your coin purses, help pitch in just a bit to defray the massive cost of all these dang healing potions we need to keep Jeremy crawling through the dungeons. If you want to support the show on an ongoing basis, you can check us out at patreon.com/oopsallmonsters. That's oops with 2 O's, or you can make a one-time contribution to the Apothecary's Health Potions for Jeremy Fund, which at most levels will get you a shout-out at the top of the show, if you're into that. If you're not, we can give you a sweet and scary pseudonym to keep your dark business under wraps. So you can toss a coin to us at paypal.me/oopsallmonsters. Again, that's paypal.me/oopsallmonsters, and in every case, oops is with 2 O's and no punctuation, just like Tiamat intended.
Hi there. My name is Douglas Raffensperger, and I'm the CEO and founder of Douglas's Cutlasses. Have you ever found yourself in this situation? You've just gotten home from a long day of spur and growth at your small but thriving business. You're just trying to slice some quality deli meats and cheeses for a relaxing snack, and suddenly there's a mysterious intruder rummaging through your garbage outside. What's a domestic disruptor to do when you get in a pickle like this? Pull out your handy-dandy, short-handled, half-guarded naval sword, that's what. Here at Douglas's Cutlasses, we've got every possible cutlass for every conceivable scenario. Are you an aspiring or current CEO of a Fortune 500 company? I've got a cutlass for that. A middle school teacher struggling to maintain discipline in the classroom? I've got a cutlass for that. Looking to add a little flair to drab dinner parties? I've got a cutlass for that. Some people say to me, but Douglas, I'm not a pirate, privateer, or sailor. What do I need with a battle-quality 27-inch half-guard naval sword? I'm so glad you asked. Here at Douglas's Cutlasses, our research shows that the vast majority of conflicts, both business and personal, can be positively affected by the introduction of a modest, well-crafted naval sword. So let's get swashbuckling. No matter what's your problem, an easy-to-wield, iron-forged cutlass is probably the solution. So once again, I'm Douglas Raffensperger of Douglas's Cutlasses. Come get stabby with me. Please go to paypal.me/oopsallmonsters and make a payment there. And that's oops with 2 O's. Again, that link is paypal.me/oopsallmonsters.
Okay,
All right.
So what do you got for us, Gavin?
What do I got? Well, it's another imagine, if you will.
Okay.
Imagine, if you will, that you're in 2002 rural Pennsylvania, or somewhere that has a lot of cornfields.
Oh, okay.
And for months, acres at a time have been destroyed by what you think are pranksters, and they're flattening your crops in circular patterns for months. And your kid keeps asking for water, and your other kid keeps being a smart mouth to you, and your former minor league baseball playing nephew has moved in because he got kicked out of the league for some reason. And
is this the aliens from Signs?
It's the aliens from Signs.
Oh, I didn't think I was right.
Yes. Yes,
the
it
aliens.
Sure is.
Okay,
Oops, all aliens from Signs, or as I like to call it, dead wife coping Pennsylvania aliens.
Oh shit! It's gonna be a long M night.
It will be a long M night because I got a lot on this. I got a lot on it, and I figured I would do one that isn't like my favorite, or isn't something more accurately that I didn't know in length about until like yesterday. But I watched the movie and I was honestly impressed, and though not by the monster, because the monster's really vague and kind of dumb.
What a twist!
I'm looking at these guys because I gotta admit I have not seen Signs since it came out. I'm pretty sure I actually saw it in the theater. Is that kid a Culkin? He looks like a Culkin.
Yeah, that is a Culkin.
Which Culkin is that?
Oh,
is that Kieran? Who is that one? Anyway, you figure that out. I'm looking at these guys. I'm looking at these alien boys. And they're kind of they're very close to just being dudes. They kind of look like almost like undead, naked dudes, but with a big bulbous head and overly developed crown, ridges above their eyebrows, because they've got a sunken in no flesh nose and holes where their ears should be.
Yeah, they got they're a green kind of yellow.
They kind of look like a Fallout mutant of some kind.
They do look like a Fallout mutant. They have like upright digitigrade legs. They have like in the close-up scene of the monster's hand whenever it came out to grab at Mel Gibson. It had "They Live" makeup on it, which had like that base gray heavy makeup with like red and kind of like teal muscle looks. Like you know what I'm talking about. The "They Live."
Yeah, it's like the flesh. Yeah, the flayed flesh effect, where it's like you should have skin on top of that, buddy.
I think it's because the monster's main thing is that they are chameleon-like invisible. That they can so blurt their skin to be invisible, and that's why nobody really sees them. And it's scary whenever you finally see it because it's not on the news. Like they capture one on home video for a brief second before it
zaps out,
runs away. Yeah,
right. So they can do invisibles. What else can they do?
They can shoot a knockout poison out of a penis claw that comes out of their wrist.
Oh man!
Because even though chameleons aren't venomous, like they everything that has the chameleon power also has poison powers. That's just a given. Because it's a reptilian, so of course it has that one.
How Cronenbergian of them?
Yeah. Which is why I think it's a monster more than an alien.
Yeah, I think I'm with you here.
They also have trouble with closed doors. Like that's their biggest obstacle in the movie.
Yeah,
because
they're like Lieutenant Worf from Next Generation. They just can't handle doors.
I want to say it's because they're so technologically superior that an old Victorian closed door is just not what they expect to be in their way.
Yeah, I mean, there's almost some kind of logic to that, except for doors are so self-explanatory. But I don't know. I mean, I'm not from 1,000 years in the future, so on another planet. So I don't know.
Well, it's also a big monster trope thing to cash in on. Like, you close the door, and what could be safer than that?
Yeah, sure.
Like the door's closed. There's not going to get me, and everything has a problem with closed doors, from like zombies to Jason.
Yeah. Yeah, my girlfriend is playing this like relatively old now, like Friday the 13th game where you can play as the counselors or as Jason. And Jason's really got to stand there and bash away at these doors. Most of the Jasons, he's really got to.
A lot of what
he cannot just open them. He has to demolish them, so that you know that he's coming. And it's just like a whole process. He does not open doors. He's got to chop them down one bit at a time.
Yeah, and Mel Gibson is a preacher in this movie, and he has 2 kids, and his nephew live with him. His wife just died. Like, I think in the movie it was like weeks ago. So he has to come to terms with that, and then a lot of the movie is accepting that aliens have invaded, and that's a reality. And now Mel Gibson has to rationally deal with that, which he does a good job of, like... He does a good job of that, but he also does a good job of portraying that is a hard thing to do.
Yeah, sure.
So whenever he does do it, it's actually impressive and kind of realistic. And M. Night Shyamalan, whenever I watch this, I noticed a lot of his director tricks coming through. Like, he does things like he doesn't tell the actors a lot of things. He says personal things to the actors to, like, motivate them and stuff like that, and it works. Like, all of especially with the kids did a great job.
Yeah, I have no doubt that the directing and the performances in it are solid. I mean, whether you have complicated feelings about them, like the Joaquin Phoenix and Mel Gibson and the Culkin clan are all strong performers.
Yeah, definitely. Like, there was a scene where Mel Gibson talks to M. Night Shyamalan, who plays the character that hit his wife with his car, is how she died. And so the way that M. Night Shyamalan brought that scene across was that he didn't tell Mel Gibson that he was going to play that character. And so whenever Mel Gibson goes to talk to him, he's like surprised, genuinely.
Yeah,
and that was a good move. And I think M. Night's nephew or something like that actually died like a couple of days before he shot that scene, and he used that too. So like both of them were clearly upset, and it translated onto film like really well. But back to the monsters, yeah, they don't have spacesuits or anything. They're pretty much running around naked, and I guess that's because they have a natural chameleon thing, or it could be argued that they aren't space aliens at all, that they're actually demons because Mel Gibson is a preacher and he's given up on God. And if you were going to go with like the themes of the movie, then Christianity is real and you shouldn't give up on God because here's a bunch of demons coming to get you.
Yeah,
and then a simpler, more believable version of that is that they are inner demons. And that inner demons invaded Earth, and a lot of people succumb to that. Or, since the ending is vague and it doesn't show, like, the world rebuilding, it just shows Mel Gibson rebuilding, that, like, maybe that's another sign that it was just inner demons.
Yeah, I mean, I'm how do I want to say this? I'm worried that if I come up with a super conspiracy for Signs, that I'm maybe giving Shyamalan too much credit, but we'll see. But I mean, is it possible that Signs is a version of a Shyamalan like left turn ending that actually doesn't get us to the punchline? That honestly, that like you'd have to have another movie to do the reveal of what the fuck is the deal with what the creatures are, because in almost every other instance he's not painting with a brush that ends in a question mark. Like he's giving you like, oh, but it was this. Like he's really telling you in every other case like what the jam is.
Yeah,
and they appear to do that as much as I recall it in this movie. It's like, oh yeah, they were real. Don't worry, it's aliens, bro.
Yeah.
Hit him with a baseball bat. And that appears to be the punchline, the big M. Night punchline.
Well, the other punchline, like Shyamalan twist thing, was that it's called Signs, but it's not about crop circles. It's about all of the signs that you could interpret as like divine suggestions on what to do and how to handle things, which is awful for a paranoid schizophrenic person to watch and like
go on
and internalize, because all of this stuff that happens, like the little girl doesn't want her water, so water's all around for the alien to die at the end.
Okay.
His dead wife tells Mel Gibson to tell the nephew, swing away. Just tell him, swing away. and all of these subtle like building blocks on how to save the Culkin kid's life at the end.
Yeah, the punchline is kind of predestination or fate or I mean, they are signs. It's like communication from beyond the grave to save you from one exact bad moment in time. It's like there's a time bottleneck.
If you've ever had like a psychotic breakdown where you thought that secret messages were telling you to do something for one specific event, because I mean, speaking from from a bizarre rare breakdown that I had once. That's one of the craziest things that you could think.
I can see that if you were, that I guess this could really be an exacerbating piece of art if you were like currently on a psychotic like track, even very temporarily. If you were having a, we'll call it dynamic relationship with reality. watching a film that is telling you that everything really does mean something, and that you must take those, you absolutely must take those signs seriously.
Yeah.
In order to save the world from space demons or what have you.
Yeah.
It might not be the most constructive message. So, probably not great for the old folks home or the mental ward to have this one floating around on DVD.
But other than that, it's a wonderful piece of film. But the monsters have been described by Joaquin Phoenix as like physically superior, because he said he was running at one at full speed, and he said, I'm pretty strong and I'm pretty fast, and it seemed like this thing was toying with us. And so the monster would have both strength and agility, so check those off.
Yeah.
It's got like a natural spray weapon, check that off.
Okay.
These are arguments that it is a monster.
Yeah, no, I buy. I think it definitely counts. It's scary. It's dangerous. It's metahuman, or it's beyond human. I mean, even if it's just ultimately the figment of like Mel Gibson's imagination, or if it's some kind of part of some, it's still monstrous. Can you remind me? Is there some kind of like wrap up part after they discover, because it's like water that kills him or something, right?
Yeah.
So
it's just water.
Is there some kind of like narrative wrap up where the news says and now Jim Bob and the sheriffs all ran around with super soakers and killed them all, or
no. Which is great that you brought that up, because that also suggests that it's Christian demons, because Mel Gibson is a preacher and he's been handling all this water that his child refuses to drink, and you could interpret that as that it's holy water since the preacher touched it. And the news only says that they have been defeated by an ancient way that nobody thought of, or something like that. They've been defeated by a long forgotten ancient method.
Right.
It was the wording, which is weird. Like to spray holy water on them. So that could have been left up to interpretation. Or if you want to say that they're just space aliens, then like they're silicon-based life forms and they're allergic to water.
Right.
Like it's a big, vague, open-ended thing. What a twist.
What a twist. Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of, I don't know, in terms of the actual storytelling, I find the water weakness to be one of Shyamalan's lazier plot resolutions.
That's what I thought a long time ago, too.
It really saves you. I mean, if it is symbolism for a religious concept, that's one thing. Yeah. But also, whatever it is, it resolves too easily. It's kind of it's a cheap and overly efficient out, and so it bothered me a lot. It's the same feeling at the end of War of the Worlds when it turns out that they all just end up getting sick, because
that's what I was going to say. I was going to bring that up.
The protagonists don't have to really do anything beyond discover the crux, discover the cheat code, and then it plays out without their effort, and that it feels bankrupt, writing wise to me. I'm not an across the board anti Shyamalan guy. I think that Sixth Sense had its value, and I don't even hate on The Village as much as other people do. It bothers me. It gives me shades of bother now that I know what's up. But I kind of actually still enjoy watching the movie for seeing the relationships that all the characters have as they play out that kind of like secret mystery. And the Bruce Willis one, Unbreakable, that we're going to have a sequel to. I like Unbreakable. I think that's good.
I loved Unbreakable. That's an awesome movie.
So I'm not a Shyamalan hater, even though he's got that very clear pattern.
I used to be. I used to hate him with a passion.
Swing away, Meryl.
And I changed my mind recently. I don't know if I grew up or something. But whenever I first saw this when it came out, I thought this was the stupidest shit that I've ever seen. Because I was expecting, whenever they said it was space aliens, I was expecting a space alien with like a gun and a suit. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't. It was a naked chameleon man. And I didn't think too hard about it, but I really didn't have to. I think a lot of the mindset that people were in 2002 would agree with me to say, like, well, this is just dumb.
Yeah, I think that really I think that the intelligent way to think about these quote unquote aliens or these creatures is that they are an analogy. They're a metaphor for the family's crisis, and them being aliens or being demons kind of takes us walks us along the path of the religious crisis, the crisis of faith that the family is undergoing, and that that they just have to, essentially they become resolute in having their structure for understanding reality reaffirmed, and once they get their kind of confidence and mojo back, they resolve the problem, because it only makes sense if it resolves in that tidy way if they are symbolic monsters. Because if they're symbolic monsters being destroyed by water and being summarily removed from the plot with disproportionately efficient effort, it plays. It makes sense, because if your crisis is a crisis of confidence or faith or whatever it is, and you play that out, it is going to resolve in a extraordinarily tidy fashion.
See, that was kind of covered too, because it also hinted at that this was not an invasion; it was like a raid. And I think that would have been cool to think that like some space pirates happened upon Earth and said, "Here's some free food." And let's eat these crazy gun nuke monkeys.
You want to die with a man's gun, not a little CC gun like this.
So, that would be a cool idea to me too. That like Earth might be considered really dangerous by an intergalactic committee, and the only people that would come here would be like starving pirates on a raid. But yeah, the movie covers that, that it wasn't an invasion. It wasn't like a full force invasion, but like a simple raid. There was a military recruiter character.
Shit, I know you. You're Meryl Hess.
Who looks really creepy, and M. Night does like the close-up thing on creepy characters to say creepy things, at certain times.
I know who I am. I'm a dude playing a dude disguised as another dude.
And this actor, I want to find what his name is. Ted Sutton plays the recruiter sergeant, and what he says is like, we do this in the Army all the time. It's called a recon raid. You take a small group and you send them in to assess the situation. You don't send them in to conquer or create a major conflict. You just send them in to see. And like that suggests that this is not a full-scale invasion, and they're not here to take over or anything like that.
Yeah, interesting. That's I just looking at this now, I had totally forgotten that I am theoretically related to all of these main characters in this movie. They're all Hesses.
Yes, that was another thing.
Graham Hess, Meryl Hess, Morgan Hess, Bo Hess, Colleen Hess. I had totally forgotten that. It makes sense. Regionally, there are a lot of Hesses in southwestern Pennsylvania, and where we are here in north central West Virginia. There's a lot of Hesses around here.
A lot of Hesses. There's something that M. Night kind of disappointed me on, because supposedly he's from Philly, but he gets a lot of shit wrong about, like, geography.
In Pennsylvania?
And, because I used to live in Philly, and then I spent a lot of time after that living just outside of Philly, which is where this is supposed to take place. And there's a lot of, like, backwoods characters with one-lines and stuff that says, like, at one point a character says city folks to, like, just describe a type of customer they have in their bookstore, and, like, I put aside that alien book for city folks, and, like, that's not what just outside of Philadelphia is like. They also mentioned the town that they were in. They said it's 45 minutes out of Philadelphia. In actuality, you could, like, walk there.
Right.
Philadelphia.
Right. I'm looking at the cast here. Michael Showalter is in Signs.
Yes, I have that written down. I was going to bring that up too. Michael Showalter plays one of Joaquin Phoenix's, like, friends, kind of, or a kid that knows him. Because the recruitment sergeant that I was talking about recognizes Joaquin Phoenix and, like, brings up what a great baseball player he was. And then Michael Showalter has this terrific set of lines where he's like, yeah, well, he's also got the strikeout record. He would swing at anything.
How random. That would throw me out of a movie as fast as anything, seeing Michael Showalter playing totally straight.
And he's dressed up like a metalhead. He's got, like, long hair and a sleeveless leather jacket.
All right. I'm gonna have to watch this movie again. I bet I've told.
Definitely recommend it.
Do you recall my telling you about seeing Michael Ian Black in Beverly Hills? Have I told you this anecdote?
Yeah, but I don't remember the specifics of the story. What happened?
When I worked at the talent agency, it was located, like, right in the heart of Beverly Hills, and me and a bunch of the other peons, you take, the thing is, when you take lunch, you're in Beverly Hills, so you got to find places that are not, like, they still have, like, Einstein Brothers bagels and stuff. Like, there's stuff for the peons to eat. There's restaurants you can go to. You can get a Subway sandwich or whatever. But we walk down, like, Cannon, or Canyon is really what it should be, but everybody just calls it Cannon without the little, like, dealy bopper over the O. And so we're in our ties and walking to get lunch at wherever, and it's also, in addition to having all these little restaurants on it, it's got really bougie Beverly Hills shopping, and we're walking and talking about whatever garbage we're talking about, and there's a whole line of, like, single parking spaces, and as we're walking, I see that we're approaching Michael Ian Black, who is leaning resplendently back on the hood of what had to be, like, a BMW on the front of the hood, like a Michael Ian Black gag, like, and just by himself, waiting for, presumably a wife or somebody to come out of a shop, just not doing anything at all. And without breaking my stride, as we're walking by, I look Michael Ian Black in the eyes and I go, I just read your book in the appropriate fashion. He said, on the toilet? And I said, exactly. And I didn't stop walking at all. And his response was, very good, or something in that fashion. And it was like it was the perfect amount of Michael Ian Black interaction. It was the perfect dynamic. I didn't stop. No, there were no questions involved. I didn't, it was like, luckily I had been dipped in enough Los Angeles where you don't, like, freak out about seeing even really, really, really hilarious people that you've been enjoying since, like, high school. It was just a perfect little macaron of interaction. check that box. But, like,
that's awesome.
I guess he's just literally like that 24/7. I can't imagine what it'd be like living in his household.
We'd like to take a break to pay tribute to a man who is a great innovator in TV comedy and an inspiration to all of us.
What's Shyamalan? M. Night Shyamalan.
Shyamalama Ding Dong.
What he does is take like a really well shot movie, like the cinematography in it is really good. It makes things tense when they should be. It makes things weird whenever they should be. I should say weird instead of tense. It builds up all this stuff and tells this backstory. Like, all it really does is tell a backstory, and then it gives you this plot type thing, and then lets you make up your own mind with the illusion of it telling a whole story. Because, like, pretty much you have to write the rest of it. And, that's okay. I mean, a lot of movies try to do that, but don't, and like fail really terribly. I think this one did. Like, leave it up to the audience. But this one is leave it up to the audience, and that's also a presumption that you would have to make. Like, is it leave it up to the audience? But the answer is yes. But like, But a lot of people watching it who aren't really paying attention would think that, like, that's a whole story. And it's not leave it up to the audience, and, like, what a stupid movie. That's what I thought 15, 20 years ago. And, but that's what it did, and the thing that I came up with was if I were to fill in the blanks, because there's a lot of blanks, and that was done on purpose, I would fill in the blanks with, it was just a bunch of raiding pirate aliens that were starving, like on their way somewhere. And they pointed at Earth and said, there's that dangerous place, but it's full of, like, people to eat.
Yeah.
So let's stop here and, like, carve out a bunch of signs in the crop circles so we can land at the right places. Because that was, like, a big part of the movie. And then they do that. And in doing so, they coincidentally reaffirmed the preacher's faith and, found out that the water on Earth has some type of thing in it that kills them. And so they bug out and leave, and then everybody's happy. And either it was by coincidence, or there is a God, and he sent the aliens. And, but that's like a leave it up to the audience on top of a leave it up to the audience, because I will agnostically strictly enforce my agnostic belief into leave it up to what you decide after me telling you that. So there you go.
Forced agnosticism.
Yeah, forced agnosticism.
You will doubt the specifics of this, and you will like it.
But a lot of the scariness that I think comes from the monster is that it's, like, obfuscated all the time. Even whenever you see it, like, whenever it features it in a full shot, it's not really a full shot. Like, there's light coming in from a window behind it. It's CGI, and I think it's done, like, blurry and bad on purpose. And, like, the handheld camera shot of it is a handheld camera shot, so it's all blurry.
Yeah.
And so and whenever you do see its face, it's kind of like a nightmare human face stuck in, like, undead horror Scream. Like, because it's got, like, a wide mouth and dark sunken in eyes and, like, a nose cone, like a no-nose cone.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, like, skeletal and sunken in.
Well, it's interesting. I'm looking at the trivia here. It mentions that Shyamalan cites The Birds, Night of the Living Dead, and Invasion of the Body Snatchers as the primary influences for the film, which is really interesting because those are kind of like foundational survival genre, horror prototypes. And it's also interesting because all of those are definitely real monsters. I mean, the birds are just birds, but they're not conceptual. They're not allegorical monsters. Yeah. I mean, they are allegorical in the sense that they signify other things depending on who you're talking to. You know, are the birds just birds? Maybe. But certainly the zombies in Night of the Living Dead and the body snatchers in Invasion of Body Snatchers are meant to be allegorical in the sense that they represent other things. That's what the survival horror genre is about. So it's interesting that his kernel of where this idea comes out of things that are real literal dangers as opposed to conceptual dangers. It on a lot of ways it does make more sense if it's a monster of the mind in this film than a monster that's really coming after you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to watch it again because I really remember enjoying the direction of the film in that it does, as you say, meter out tension in an effective manner. Like it goes from beat to beat, and your anxiety and your fear about what is real and what's going to happen and what's going to happen next is palpable, and it's strong. And then, but what I recall in seeing it in the film in theaters was then it led me up to that point, and then the bottom dropped out of it in that it was too easily resolved, and or it was fake, and or it was the punchline didn't coalesce for me, or I thought, my early 2000s brain hated the idea that it was there was a Jesus-y answer to it. Some combination of those ingredients left me stepping out of the theater, like rubbing my eyes, going like, "Well, that was some bullshit." Like the end really infuriated me, and I was enjoying the movie all up to like the last 10 or 15 minutes. I'm gonna have to watch it again with a different set of eyes and see what I take from it now.
Definitely. I don't really ever want to say how old we are, but it definitely looks different from a pair of year-old eyes.
Yeah, well, a lot of things do. That's just reality. Your understanding changes and your appreciation for subtlety changes, and symbolism. The understanding of something being standing in for another idea that becomes a lot more valuable when you can reflect on it. So I don't know. This movie may play. The end of this movie may now play to me in a way that I actually appreciate, but I genuinely don't know.
Yeah. Well, also a lot of the movie is like it builds a lot of relatable and sympathetic feelings for Mel Gibson's character, and you really don't want his kids to hate him. Like by the middle of the movie, you're like really rooting for Mel Gibson to be like Father of the Year, because so far he's doing like a really good job of being a good father, but his kids are angry anyway because the mom died.
Yeah.
And you really want everything to be okay. And M. Night did a good job of like building that story.
Yeah.
On top of like space chameleon Jesus monsters.
Yeah, there's an observation here on IMDb that says that Gibson found it interesting because he doesn't usually play such internalized and introspective characters. And I would say that is true, but also I think Mad Max is, for the most part, he's an internalized and introspective character. Like
absolutely,
he ends up getting very act outy in some crucial scenes in Thunderdome because he's forced to take charge of some situations. But just like in Tom Hardy's portrayal in the new movie, it's essentially a Buster Keaton style character. It's essentially a silent movie character who is giving you his performance without like dislocating his shoulder and screaming alcoholic rants. Like it's somebody who is using his face to communicate an internal drama. A la Buster Keaton or Charlie Chaplin. So I don't think it is true that he does not have a lot of opportunity to play very internal characters. I think Hollywood dragged him into the direction of being extremely externalized with his character's energy, but I think like from the DNA of his original character.
Well, Mel Gibson might have like lost his fucking mind in the last 15 years. So, like...
yeah, that's what's funny is go ahead.
Well, he's definitely like a hard drinker, and as many like rehab and denials about it. Like he's definitely a hard drinker. I know one when I see one, and he's been drinking every day for like a long time, and that will eventually pickle your brain and make you lose your fucking mind.
Yeah, it's true. I don't want to bring up the. I just have to bring up this anecdote from another 2-in-1 episode about the talent agency. Is when I was working there, I was at this really big board meeting. I don't remember I think it was a Monday morning meeting. It's like a normal thing that they do at these places to talk about like new scripts and things that their actors and directors can be on. And so like all the agents were there, and it was at the time where the big Mel Gibson meltdown thing happened. It was right then, and because of that, his all of his representation dropped him. And somebody suddenly brought it up. They said, so what do we think about the possibility of picking up Mel Gibson? And then there was like a massively pregnant pause. And and somebody said something on the lines of, like, we just can't touch that with a 10-foot pole. I mean, who would, who, like, and then, but another one of, but in response to that agent, who was very prominent, I won't give names, but was very prominent in the company, another prominent agent said, you represent a fucking pedophile. And I cannot get into the weeds about who any of those characters are, because somebody would for sure drop a lawsuit on me. But that was very true. All of those things. Yeah, that was, and I remember being so satisfied, being the closest thing to a fly on the wall as a low-ranking assistant, just being like, you do represent a pedophile. Just some.
I would have after the first one, I would have picked up Mel Gibson like nothing, real quick.
Yeah,
like absolutely. Yeah, you can't ignore like the 30 years that he did do.
But you also have to understand within that world how
I know that's why I would be great in it, because nobody would make the moves that I do.
Yeah, it's just nobody's making.
I'd Ray Donovan the fuck out of
it. Nobody's making these Gavin level moves here in Cannon and Beverly. Oh wow. All right. Well, I'll hook you up with his people.
All right. Good.
This is a stick-up. Anybody moves, and the dead's me!
The first step, Mel, is that you're not allowed to have a phone or really anything else.
You're not allowed to have a phone, a car, or a wife.
Yeah, you can't have a phone, a car, or a wife. You should definitely stay away from a wife. You're not going to have
we're going to get you any
contact with women.
We're going to get you a very expensive real doll. And... And
who knows? You might even fall in love with it. We could make a movie.
Yeah, we'll get you an artificial intelligence for your Alexa. It'll order all of the carrot smoothies for you and turn the hot tub on.
Joke's on you. I already am in love with Alexa.
Apparently, there's a big problem. I don't know if it's a problem. There's a big phenomenon of that going on during the pandemic. Of course. Of people falling in love with their Siris and Alexas and things. I
know, that's because all these fucking idiots haven't been crazy before. You've never fallen in love with a fucking robot before? What are you, like 5?
Well, now I'm turning the binoculars on myself and going, have I fallen in love with a robot? No, I didn't have an intimate relationship with Teddy Ruxpin. I'm trying to think of what
coffee stained Tila.
I mean,
or was that more just a trauma?
That's just a. I mean, I think that was just a Now we have to fucking explain that on the show.
Well, that's not a robot either.
That's just a totem. Tila didn't. My Tila action figure didn't have like a personality more so than most of the other Masters of the Universe characters. I mean, she was prominent because there were so few female characters at that point until She-Ra broke. And, the She-Ra characters, because there wasn't as much content about them, they were a little bit, I don't know, there just wasn't the juice there with Evelyn and Tila and the Sorceress. But I can't say that I have had a... I'm gonna recall something after this episode and be like, oh no, I totally had a weird relationship with, I don't know what the fuck, some game on my Commodore 64 or something.
Kate, you're not wearing a bustle. How dude?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you. I'll completely tell you. I'll straight up tell the world too. In San Andreas, you can have girlfriends. And there's this one girlfriend in the San Francisco type place parody named Michelle, and Michelle is this relaxed hippie chick, and she is so awesome. And if she likes you well enough, she'll let you take her monster truck out, and you can impress her by crushing shit with the monster truck. And, I fell in love with that for a long time, and for a long time, it was date night with Michelle. So all these people falling in love with Alexa, get your shit together. Get a girl that can crush cars with you in her monster truck.
Fair enough.
Instead of just play your favorite songs.
Fair enough. All right. Yeah, I have not played. I stopped at I hated GTA 4 so much that I knew that San Andreas was good, but I just didn't hop on that wagon.
Did you notice anything weird a minute ago?
I should, now that it would cost me $250 to buy, but I just never got on San Andreas. I'm trying to think of non-human characters that I've had romantic feelings for, and maybe it's ironic that I don't have that, but I probably do and just don't recall. Have you?
Yeah, you have to.
I almost certainly must have. It's just my Swiss cheese of a memory is making it seem as if I haven't to me. So I'm going to say we're going to have to loop back to that concept at another time.
We are going to have to loop back because I only really remember Michelle while I'm thinking about it, because there had to have been dozens of others.
Yeah. Have you? This is old news, having happened just this January. But have you heard about CD Projekt Red would like you to stop having sex with Keanu Reeves, please? Have you heard about this problem?
Yes. Of course I have.
So for the edification of the audience, CD Projekt Red is the company that has created the Cyberpunk game, and because so many of the characters are fuckable. If you just combine that with it being the game being moddable enough that you can get the code for the Keanu Reeves skin and put it on one of the fuckable sex worker characters, and now Keanu Reeves is fuckable, and apparently a lot of people are doing it. I have not. This may surprise people, delved much farther into this concept, but they would please like you to stop putting the Keanu skin on the fuckable characters that live inside of their game that is totally cracked and completely moddable.
He was afraid there was something wrong with him, you know?
I don't know what the fuck you thought was going to happen, CD Projekt Red.
Well, it's supposed to be moddable too.
That's the thing. It's not just that it's broken. It's that, this was, even if you made this perfectly, you should have seen this coming. And I'm wondering if they actually give a shit, or whether they just have to say that to get his PR team to get off of their balls.
They probably have to say that. Keanu Reeves probably asked in the nicest way.
Yeah.
For people, and he's not going to tell people himself because he's so fucking nice.
like he was a pervert or something.
Yeah.
And another thing is, that's why that specifically is the reason why a lot of actors just won't do video games anymore.
Well,
because, I don't want to be a fuck doll.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, we're about 2 steps away from the everyone as a fuck doll avatar like reality because of deep faking. Like it's good. Yeah. It's in geologic time. It's going to be about half an hour from right now. Time of recording is like everybody is basically going to be turned into a 3D nonstop fuck avatar.
I told him that's what little dudes do.
Thanks to like Russia and virtual reality. Like, sorry, China's turned all of everyone with a valid federal license in the United States into a fuck doll avatar.
Yeah, well, like I say, when the going get tough, then I go and work on my Anna Kendrick android.
Oh, no, she's so tiny.
We've all done it.
She's such a tiny person with a massive jaw and shoulders. She's really got a...
People laugh at that like it's a joke.
She's really... it doesn't have to be a joke. Doesn't have to be a joke to laugh at it. Just lots of things that are not jokes, but they are funny.
That made him happy.
But also, I wanted to do like a crunch time for them, but there isn't one because like either there's a bunch of monsters for this monster, or it's like really vague and pushing it, and it doesn't sell it. Like so that's the crunch time for it, and there is no magic card.
Right. Well, that's fine. we're just having a very cinematic episode. It happens.
Haven't you had enough, both of you? My God, can't you see it's all over? Your bloody egos don't matter anymore. We're dead.
Oh, you know what? We should ask if either of these monsters are bitchin' Van Art. Is it bitchin' Van Art?
No.
The Leviathan. Leviathan could really stretch. You could really stretch Leviathan into being some kind of bitchin' Van Art. But I'm going to ultimately say no. It would be too confusing.
A
real Leviathan, a biblical or mythological deep sea monster of epic proportions. Yeah, for sure. But this fishman monster, like the fly flop machine, no way. It's too complicated, too fishy. Not gonna do. The inner alien demons from Signs, also probably.
I would say. In a M. Night collage Van Art thing, would be fucking awesome. That's like a big Bruce Willis face.
Bruce Willis,
an alien behind him, a Signs alien.
Sam Jackson, a little girl with a bonnet from the Village.
Yeah, well, just a little girl in a bonnet, not even from anything. Like a little girl in a bonnet, big Bruce Willis face, alien standing behind him. And like
sneak in a handmaid from Handmaid's Tale. They won't even notice because of the Village characters.
A handmaiden.
You gotta have Marky Mark and some bees.
Look, I don't know if you guys have heard about this article in the New York Times about honeybees vanishing.
Yeah, Samuel L. Jackson with his hair all
Yeah.
In a purple suit.
But have you seen
some bees?
Some bees coming out of like Marky Mark's Funky Bunch jeans.
Like some plants.
Yeah, some bees, some plants, and Marky Mark with like with a spyglass.
Yeah, what's her name with her big eyes, looking scared at like a flower? What is her name?
What?
It's being quirky, and here's your host, Zoe Deschanel.
Oops, all hipster girlfriend. Yeah. Why can I? They're the Deschanels. Yeah. Zoe Deschanel.
Zoe Deschanel. With her giant eyes being really scared of a flower.
Yeah. Hot take, Zoe Deschanel is the hipster millennial Meg Foster.
I guess. Oh, yeah.
That's staying in with the long pause.
There was a time where I was absolutely sick of Zoe Deschanel, and like I purposefully started to like say things in social media like negatively about her. And then I watched like 2 seasons of New Girl and changed my mind because that show's funny.
Yeah. Some parts of it are really good. And good for them having 2 similar black guys and not writing one out permanently.
Yeah, that was stupid.
I mean, they didn't plan on both the 2 characters staying in, but they didn't like drop a fucking bus on one of them when the other one came back. So, good for them.
Could you shut up?
And now for a segment we are calling Describing Benicio, where we describe a particular photo of actor, Heineken enthusiast, and your legal counsel, Benicio Del Toro.
Oh, yeah.
So, we were doing Nick Cave, and we decided to stop beating that Australian horse and
burning bush
transition into another enigmatic character. And as the fates would have it, asking who is like Nick Cave, this landed us on Mr. Del Toro, who I was not aware his original nationality is Puerto Rican. Did not know that he was Puerto Rican. I never really looked into him as a biographically before. So he's a 54-year-old Puerto Rican actor. And according to this dumb website, he is a Christian who is 6 foot 1 inches tall and 89 kilograms. So, which is apparently what people want to know. I mean, I do know that people want to know how tall famous people are. It's like the first question they ask about anybody is, were they really tall?
Well, it's never what it seems.
That's why it's interesting. With kids that I'm teaching remotely, I saw this article about somebody is asking kids what they really missed about actually being in class, and one of the kids responded, knowing who's tall and who's short.
Right?
And I found that to be a really hilarious reality with kids, is they don't care about anything super serious.
That's what I'd say. Do you know how tall Prince was?
Very small.
He's very small.
It's very small. But Benicio, pretty tall guy, 6'1". But how would you describe this photo that I pulled up?
This photo, oh man.
It looks to me like he's at a wedding, and there's like a camera. There's one of those use this during the wedding cameras on the table.
Yeah.
Like one of the click and spin cameras, where he's just like, this is going to be your photo of Mr. Del Toro.
Yeah. Well, it looks like he took the picture by accident while he was getting ready for the picture.
Yeah, it definitely looks like your first shot on a roll of 30 or 35, where it'd be like, we got to make sure it works. You got to click it once to make sure it goes. Yep, got it.
If it were even further out of context, I would say that he's definitely questioning why the camera is.
Yeah, in reality, it's probably a paparazzi photo of some guy and being like, "Hey, Benny," and just whipping around at him. He's just like, I don't need it. Why am I? No. Is he on a set? There's some very artificial purple lighting that's giving him a real kind of Bela Lugosi, ghostly, unfortunate pallor in this one.
This is a better than life chip. Meet Benicio Del Toro in your data jack with this better than life chip.
What's that Ralph Fiennes movie with the very upsetting point of view rapes? Why can I not? It's
Strange Days.
Strange Days. He looks like a program of someone being really miserably assaulted in Strange Days with Ralph Fiennes.
Yeah.
It's like, I wish you would not make this about me.
Yeah, here's the sim stem of harassing Benicio Del Toro.
Yeah, CD Projekt Red asks you to please stop having sex with Benicio Del Toro.
Yeah, please stop brain dancing Benicio Del Toro's troubling question segment where you just assault him right in his face.
Yeah,
hey Benicio, how you doing?
He doesn't want to talk about he doesn't want to talk about whether Johnny Depp was secretly a dickhead. He just doesn't. Yeah. He doesn't want to bring it up anymore. He just wants to sell some fucking Heineken.
He just wants to sell and drink that Heineken.
Have you seen those commercials? They're so odd. They're a weird mix of charm and artifice, which, like, I guess is, acting, but there's a particular...
That is what acting
particular is. I mean, I know that factually it is, but there's something about those Heineken ads that Del Toro does that are like... It's like, it's like you can hear him under his breath saying, I know you guys... I know this ad is complete dog garbage, but let me sell you this fucking beer. I know it's bullshit. You know it's bullshit. Here's some fucking Heineken.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he's not a commercial person at all. He's
It's very...
He's just as confused as you are.
It's like,
why am I in this commercial? Why am I trying to
It's very much like, I don't know why I'm here in this commercial. You don't know why I'm in here in this commercial. It's not going to last very long, I promise, and I swear I'm going to wink at the end. Let's just get through this together. Me and you. Dave, we're gonna get through this Heineken commercial. Just lay back and we're gonna show the bottle. It's gonna be over. I think this has been Describing Benicio.
Describing Benicio's SimStim. Thank you for coming into the Monster Shop and having a look around. We enjoyed your presence and look forward to your attendance next time. This has been Gavin.
And this has been Hess.
And we've been Oops All Monsters.
And that brings us to the end of our time with you, dear reader, until we deliver you another batch of beasts, bullywugs, and bowls of flesh-eating dessert fluff.
I never even knew he had teeth.